Blues Connection. I'm Matty T, and today my guest is Sean McGroarty. Sean is the leader and lead singer and harmonica player for the Used Blues Band. Welcome to the show, Sean.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I think we'll just jump right into it. The show, if you haven't watched it before, is based on asking blues artists questions about their life and their music and what makes them tick. So, Sean, how long have you been playing harmonica?
Since about 2000. That's about 12, 13 years.
Okay. So were you involved with music before that?
Always liked music. Always was into music. When I had hair, I was in a roadie for a bunch of rock bands in the late 70s and early 80s, and that was my thing. I just liked to be around the music. And
so I know that about you a little bit. I know you were a roadie. You roadied for what? Did you for Eddie Money?
I roadied for Eddie Money, and I roadied in the Union. So I did one-off shows.
Different shows.
Days. I did a couple Day on the Green, some at the Calaveras. I did Journey at Calaveras. Done Heart at Concord Pavilion and places like that.
Okay, pretty cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. So how old were you then?
I started when I was about 13. So this group that played at our high school, they needed somebody to help at the end. And so there was nobody there. Their roadies didn't show up. They were probably incapacitated. And so they said, hey, I said, do you need a hand? They said, yeah, sure. And I helped them, and I didn't break anything. And they said, hey, do you want a job? I said, sure, you know. So
okay.
I did that. And I looked older, so I didn't have, once I started doing that, going into all the bars, I didn't have a problem. Actually, my older brother did, because he roadied with us after a year or so. And he sometimes they'd wait till everything was set up, and then they'd card you. I was like, really, you're going to do that? And sure enough, they didn't card me. I'm standing right next to my older brother, and he has to go sit outside now that all the hard work is done and the fun starts.
Right.
So
okay,
that was kind of interesting.
So how are things going for you? I'm aware, and I'm going to ask you that you've won some awards for charity work, or
I did. I got a oddly enough, it's called a humanitarian of the year. So it's actually for Gary and I. We have the Used Blues Band.
Gary being
Gary, my guitar player, Gary Anthony. So he is when we started the band. We originally started with Joe.
By the way, I know who Gary is. I just wanted you to know.
For all of you folks out there in TV land. But when I was roadieing for that first band, the guitar player was Joe Brainerd, who after 20 years I hadn't seen him, and then I ran into him here in Vacaville, and we started the Used Blues Band. But he wanted to do something more just laid back, casual, and it started to take off, and people wanted to book us, and he said, this is, we got to dress up and we got to rehearse. But later he ended up doing that. He got the bug and had to stay in it. So, but when he left, Gary is who replaced him. Right. So Gary and I started doing solo duo music, and this organization called Shelter Box. They put out millions of these 4x4 pallets that have a tent in it for 10 people. It's got a first aid kit, stove, tool kit, bathroom facility, everything built into this little box. And when the tsunami hit in Indonesia, Japan, Hurricane Katrina, Joplin, Missouri, the tornado, all those things, they drop these boxes off, and they drop crews with it to go out and help them set it up. And you can live in one of those for a year of 10 people. And so it's a really cool organization. They're international, and a friend of mine is one of their trustees, and so he asked us to do this benefit, and we raised a bunch of money. And they had their convention in San Francisco this last year, and they said, hey, we're giving you an award. I said, wow, that's cool. So it was kind of fun. Yeah,
congratulations.
I like that. It was cool.
You've also done well going to Memphis.
Yes.
In international blues competitions.
That was fun. It's half of the bucket. The other half is making it to the finals. But for a bucket list item, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was very eye-opening, musically, to be able to play and compete and hang out with people from all over the world. There's 30 some odd countries that compete in that. So you're hanging out with these guys, and you get a better perspective because people get tunnel vision. When you're a big fish in a little pond, everybody thinks, hey, eyes on me. I'm one of the better known people in Sacramento or Oakland or Vacaville. And it's like, whoopee. When you go see all these other guys who do it for a living all over the world, and some of them make money and some of them don't, and some of them make $4,000 one night and $40 the next. So it's really, you get a great perspective of what world blues is.
World blues.
World blues. It is, because you listen to, like, there's the Israeli blues band, amazing blues band, all young people too, except for the keyboard player. He looked like something out of Spinal Tap.
Do you think blues is something feels more new to other countries, or more exciting to them?
Well, believe me, I'm 40. I'm you there, and so I've been able to go the last 2 years in a row, and I may go this year. I don't know. I have a wedding for a daughter, and I got an album to do in Oklahoma, and it's like, okay, and I got to work because blues doesn't pay the bills.
Right.
So being there 2 years in a row, I've got to see some of the same people, you know.
Right.
And I've got to meet new people, and when that's one of the questions I ask them, so how come blues? How come you're from, the Philippines? Why blues? You're from New Zealand or Israel or whatever. It's like, what is it? And it's huge. Blues is huge, especially in Europe, so it's bigger there than it is here. And it has a bigger following, and it has a more aggressive following. So people are fanatical about it. And these guys learn it note for note, key for key. And then the good ones realize that's not enough. You got to be able to feel it, not just know it exactly how somebody did it. And those are the guys that you typically see in Memphis who actually feel it, and they're amazing.
So do you have any plans to go to Europe?
I had 2 opportunities to do that, and I passed on both of them because just time and money.
Time and money.
Yeah, I recorded an album, or recorded on an album for a guy, Danny O'Grady. You know Danny. So he, the song that I did called La La Land was huge in Italy, and this guy that owned a bunch of music stores said, we want you to come out and play at all our music stores. Well, it's just the time off work, and after you pay your expenses and traveling and all that, there's nothing left. Right. And so we passed on it. And then the other one was Korea. So this guy said, man, you're big in Korea. I said, I'm sure I'm big in Korea. I'm big here, but I'm really big there, compared to the Koreans, And I wanted to do that, but again, the same thing, the logistics for time and money were...
Right. Now, how does Korea know of you?
Oh, from that same album that was big in Korea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Big in Korea.
You're watching The Blues Connection. I'm Matty T, and my guest today is Sean McGroarty, and we'll be right back.
America is the land of innovators who have taken on the forefront of creation, defining what the standards are for things being made. It's where people have poured sweat and cried tears to have the land of freedom. Freedom to be able to choose what to live by. Freedom to be a part of history. Fender Custom Body Stratocaster. Make history.
Welcome back. You're watching The Blues Connection with our guest today, Sean McGroarty, and we're just having a little chat, and welcome. Hey, Sean, who is your favorite harmonica player? Do you have one?
It's tough. That's a tough one. Boy George, one of my favorites, yeah.
I heard he played keyboards too.
Yeah. He's a smock designer now, I think, in Liverpool. Of course, I like Little Walter, but what I don't like is that you could line 10 harmonica players up and blindfold me, and I probably couldn't tell the difference between many of them because they're all chasing that fat, deep Little Walter sound, which is cool and it's hard to capture, but to me, I like the road less traveled. Sugar Blue is probably one of my favorites. I like Jason Ritchie right now, because he's so amazingly dynamic in what he does. His scales that he does. I think he has a master's degree in music theology, and it's just crazy the scales that guy has and the different abilities he has. There's a lot of European guys that are amazing, but again, not my style. You know, Sugar Blue, his big claim to fame was Miss You. He played harp on Miss You for the Rolling Stones, and he's in Europe a lot. He lives in Chicago, but just a great guy. Daryl Mansfield, obviously, I'm a big fan of his, and Sugar Blue has a lot going on in common with him, but that rock sound, but then I like some of the old school stuff. And then Jason Ritchie is just not, actually hasn't happened yet music. It's so advanced.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I'm not familiar with him.
He's like the punk rocker of the blues. And
I am familiar with Daryl. Daryl's my favorite.
Yeah, he's very good. Fun to play with too.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are probably like Jason Ritchie, Sugar Blue, Daryl, Little Walter.
So tell me about your gear. What type of harmonica do you play?
So I play Special 20, Honer, purchased at the Tweed Hut. I do like Special 20s because they seem to hold up better. Because it's a plastic comb. The tone stays relative.
How long does a harmonica last for you?
Because of manufacturing, I can have one last a couple months, or I could have one last a year, you know. But typically, I would say on average, a harmonica is going to last me, 4 months, in that range, 4 to 6 months.
Oh, I thought it was less time than that.
It was. When I first started playing, you draw so intensely and you blow so intensely that you blow the reeds out. So it's not, so that once you gain control of your energy, you stop blowing out reeds. And then on the other side, people who try and get that deep sound, they have to bend the note so hard, or they come down so hard on the draw that they blow it out. And I don't do that. So, but a lot of people do, and it happens. And because of manufacturing.
And good for me.
Yes, and good for you. Yes. If they ever start recycling those things, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I must have 100 of them, probably just sitting somewhere.
Just waiting to get repaired.
That's it. Yes.
Harmonica repair.
Yeah, but I do like Special 20, and I'm starting to play the chromatic harp now, so they're much more expensive to get those.
Yeah. Now, there are other brands out there like Suzuki or.
Suzuki is an interesting brand. It's a good harp. It has a good weight and feel to it. There are a lot of bands. Obviously, Lee Oscar is a popular one, as well as Seidel. I do like Seidels. I'm not ready to make the switch yet. If I were to, or if Seidel were to say, we want you to
play your harp,
then I probably would at that point.
Okay, you like them enough.
Yeah, but they're very good harp.
So do you have a favorite amplifier that you use?
I like a Fender Bassman. I mean, of all of them out there, I started playing with a deluxe, a Fender, and that was one of my first amps. And I had a twin reverb that I went to, and had to retube it, to get to break up, So if a guitar player came up, the minute they'd plug in, it would sound like dirt to them because all the power tubes and everything were all dropped down, so that you overdrive it right away because it's a harp. So that's what I wanted. And I make the mistake sometimes. People, hey, can I plug in your amp? Sure. No, don't, because they'll bang, gone. But Fender, I like the Bassman. That's probably really? I have a cool one now with it's 410s, but I can alternate between the top or the bottom or all four.
Is it a reissue?
It's the first reissue from 91.
Okay.
And it's in really great shape.
Awesome.
So, and I told Gary, although he's a guitar player, he knows a lot about amps. So he and I went through it, and Daryl went through it. And Daryl, because he travels all over the world, one of the things he does during his off times is he goes out, like if he's in the Midwest, he will go, barnstorming, which is basically going out into the middle of nowhere and finding these old farmers and people who have, antiques laying around, and the last time I talked to him about it, he found somebody had, in the old days, they used to have the tube testers in the supermarket.
Right.
And that he found a guy that had one of those tube testers in his barn. And he just took all the tubes, and those were all original, old,
Nice.
original stock is what they call it. So, he's given me a few of those.
Okay.
So I have a little
What
tiny
microphones you use?
I have a Turner and an A-static. So the A-static is
that a new?
no, they're older. So Shure, the original people have the green bullet, which is like the
The original look, anyway.
Yeah, and Turner and A-static were around in the 50s, and that's what they originally used. The elements that go inside of it, there's ceramic crystal elements, and so there's different ones. There's one called a controlled magnetic and one called a controlled reluctance. There's a white label and a black label, and if you can get the original ones, which I had, and actually Daryl actually blew it out for me, but he fixed it and replaced it. Those elements that's the holy grail, is to get that element, because it just makes a great sound. And if you can get the black label 1955, 56, they last really well, and they just produce a great sound. So I like those, the Turner. But I'm a big fan of saying, if you can't play through a vocal mic, don't start, you need to get there first. Yeah, be able to make sounds and
Be able to play your instrument.
Be able to play your instrument, but it's like, finger pressure and things for a guy playing guitar. It's the same thing with the harmonica. The pressure that you use and the tonality you get by shaping in your mouth. That's why I like people like Sonny Boy Williamson too, who's one of my favorite ones. He didn't have a whole lot of teeth, and he could make sounds that other people couldn't, because he had different spatial, movement. That I have teeth. I don't have that, But the way your mouth is shapes a lot of what you do and how you breathe and all that.
Interesting. So what about there's different genres of blues. Like you mentioned Daryl being
Kind of
rock oriented.
blues, yeah.
Where do you come from?
Rock.
Or what influences you?
Yeah, right. I mean, definitely. So when I was a roadie, I loved all the songs that these bands played. There was this one, I can't even remember the band. I know it had Vinny Appice, which is Carmine Appice, the drummer. Mm-hmm. It was his brother, and so that was kind of riding the coattails. And we did all these great. It was like late 70s, it was the early 80s, I guess. So it was kind of like really getting into the rock, sound, flange and all that. And they were playing these blues songs, which I thought they were all originals that they were doing. And I'm like, these are great tunes. Well, when I got older, I heard versions of them by people who were definitely dead. I'm like,
right.
Wow, how did that? And then I figured it out. All the rock songs were originally done from the blues. And then I started to figure out the connection between British blues and American blues, and how the blues became popular here because it became popular over there and got regurgitated.
There was a British invasion. There was an American invasion.
In
England, which came back a few years later
to us.
So we had Muddy Waters and Jimmy Reed, all the blues.
Howlin' Wolf,
blues artists. Howlin' Wolf. If you don't know this,
if you do,
were not doing so well on the market here, and they became popular in England, and were asked to come over and influenced all the young rockers from The Who, the Rolling Stones, and the Beatles.
Absolutely.
And then they came over here and influenced the American musicians. And what happened?
And what happened was,
we need to send somebody back over there.
The record companies made a lot of money, and the blues artists became very popular and didn't make a lot of money.
Right.
Yeah. My old bass player, Larry James, who you know.
I know Larry.
So he was...
Great guy, by the way.
He is awesome. Great singer, great bass player, great guitar player. So he was with a guy named Cool Papa. Papa Sadler was his name. So he was with Cool Papa in Europe, and so they would fly over there and do their tour. And this was in the 70s, I guess. And they were so happy over there because they got treated like kings. You know, the crowd was great. There wasn't anything anybody wouldn't do. Oh, let me buy you a meal. Let me buy you a beer. Can I do this for you? And he said the last week of the tour in Europe always was the worst because the gravity of having to go back to the U.S., get treated like crap, racism hitting them. But over there, you know, they were awesome. Everybody loved them, you know. So I think that's why a lot of the blues folks went back there. You know, even, I mean, look at Cheap Trick. Cheap Trick, even from a rock standpoint, they can't rub two nickels together here. They go to Japan.
Right. American music is big everywhere but in America. Where do you see the future of Sean McGroarty and playing music, playing blues? Do you have any goals that you've set?
I have some things I'd like to do. I'd like to go to Europe. You know, I don't know that the opportunity would afford itself with the whole band, but if it does, that would be great. You know, I'd like to do that. I'd like to get into the finals at the IBC just because it's at the Orpheum Theater and they've got, you know, I'm a detail guy. The staircase, the handrails are all wrapped in, you know, velvet. And it's like just the most amazing theater. And the sound in there, you could whisper on stage and hear it at the top back row. It's just so amazing, that place. So I'd like to get there and do that. One of my goals was to get an album out, and you and I have talked about that, how difficult it is to get an album out. It took 2 years, you know, I self-produced it, and I'm happy with it, you know, as far as production and everything. I'm not, you know, musically, 2 years later, you think you're too rudimentary, so you've grown a little and you want to do it again. So we sold, or we got distribution rights with another company, so now they're signed us to do the next album. So that's a goal. So future-wise, I have about half, 3/4 of the songs written for that, and we're going to go back to Oklahoma probably around the first of the year to record it. We have a lot of work to do here before we go there. So we have 5 days in the studio there. Mm-hmm. You know, they have an apartment right next to the studio. They put you in, and they have a system. So that new album is going to be interesting because most of it is original music, original used music. So that's a goal, the European thing, the IBC finals, and just, you know, having some more interesting gigs. I'm not a big fan of playing at the same places all the time. I like to branch out a little, but it's hard. I mean, people want me to play, oh, come to Reading, come to San Diego. You know, it's money, you know. It doesn't always equate out. You got hotel, you got travel expenses, there's the bar bill, you know. That's always a big one to get over. But yeah, those are kind of future things. I mean, I've had a couple years with the same lineup of people and nobody's getting any younger, and we're just going to keep going until we are fade out. That's it.
I think you got a few more years left.
I'm hoping. I still got one good leg.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show today. And we're going to grab a harmonica and grab a guitar and do a little jam, and then we'll be right back. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Sean McGroarty has been our guest. I'm Matty T. And we're going to do some jamming, as we always do at the end of our show. And we're going to do something a little like this. Sean McGroarty.